Hi everyone, I'm Morgan Le Fay and this is my channel that I dedicate to the expansion of the teachings of the Mighty I Am Presence. And today I wish to tell you how I came in contact with these teachings and with this I Am Presence and how it completely changed my life for the better. Naturally, this is a long story that here I will try to summarize it as fast as I can. I have always felt connected to God since I was a child. I remember the letters I wrote to Him when I felt pressured and urgently needed help. As a teenager in São Paulo, Brazil, I am Brazilian, I used to visit a park and there was a beautiful tree there where I would climb behind, hide from the world and talk mentally with God. God has always been an important part of my life story. I was born into an evangelical family, and naturally my vision of God was initially imbued with these concepts. However, as I grew up, around 70 years old, I started to question myself some beliefs that were embedded in me. Who was God? Who was Adam? If Cain had killed Abel and then moved to other lands, he married, had children, how could that be, since, according to the Bible account, there were no other people on earth at that time? Questions that were never answered, and that in the end led me to seek other spiritual paths. I started reading books at that time and my mind was opening up, and with it the path was also opening up. I went through some spiritual schools. In all, I strived to know, follow, and accept the precepts that were preached. Logically, I matured in each of these paths, and in each of them there was a time to arrive and a time to leave and move on, looking for other pieces of the puzzle, of the image I had in my world of feelings, but I still didn't see it perfectly on my mental screen. Maybe one of these days I will talk more about it and about each of these steps with you, but today I would just like to report the basis of how I met the I Am Presence. I believe that each of you have also experienced these changes in one way or in another in your lives. Anyway, after studying theosophy, I still felt great internal pressure. All paths and theories that I learned were useful to me. They helped me to mature my thoughts, but my feelings were still abound, which here and there exploded easily. I was anxious, needy, and acted without always thinking. This always created big problems for me. I have no emotional control. If external things happen as I wish it, I become euphoric and lost wisdom. If external things happened contrary to what I wanted, I would get depressed, cry, poison myself with destructive feelings. These created seconds of hits and misses, of ups and downs, of conflicts and joys. It broke me inside. There was no stability whatsoever. I had no stability in my relationships. I didn't have stability in my jobs. I had no stability with my family. I didn't have stability with friends. I had no stability with myself. The only good thing about all this was my inner desire to know the truth, to rise from these difficulties, to know the true nature of God. God was the one that sustained me in good times and in bad times. In the year of 2003, I had a great internal conflict, and all the theories and their contradiction that I had studied and learned since my awakening in 1995 surfaced and struggled with each other inside my mind. It was a great war inside me. I cried every night like a child, and I didn't know what to follow anymore. Everything was messed up, and my older life reflected that same inner mess. It was during this period that I had a lucid dream, and in it I was shown with my last spiritual teacher from the school that I attended. At that time, we were seated at a big table. On the table, I saw everything I had studied and learned in the past. My tarots, my runes, stones, crystals, flowers, books, pendulums, colored lamps, and other esoteric tools. Just behind the table was a cave entrance. Inside it, I remember as yesterday, ran a stream of crystal clear water. In its course, there were many stones of all sizes and shapes. Someone told me they were the life streams incarnated on earth. The voice drew my attention to the smallest one. This was my stone. All the stones were held together by a thread, a line that connected them to the stream of water and also to each other. And one each stone was a tarot card attached. In mine, I remember I saw the 7 of spades. All of these I saw as if it were an X-ray vision sitting on the table I was at that moment. Suddenly, a storm brewed, and the voice told me, "You must rescue your stone before everything is consumed by the storm." In that moment, I left the table and my teacher, and without thinking, I ran away and I entered the cave. I rescued my stone, and at the same time that the peak of the storm happened, and everything, absolutely everything around me was dissolved, disintegrated, absorbed in the heart of that furious hurricane. For a while I lost track of time and space, and I entered a great samadhi. At that moment, there was only latent life. I was that life. Everything just existed in me, and I existed in everything. There was no feeling of separation, of division, or even I did not feel as an individualized life stream. I was just life. Soon after, my consciousness returned to my individuality, and then I was faced with it. I was standing at the door of a beautiful igloo that also looked like a small cave made of ice, and externally it had an oval shape. I was dressed like a hermit. My robes were resplendent, and from my skin a great light was radiating everywhere, especially from my eyes, I remember. And at this moment, it was like looking in a mirror. I looked at myself there, I smiled at my image, and my image there smiled at me. It was crazy, but it was what I felt at that moment. And a great light expanded everywhere. And in that great light, I woke up in my body again. At that moment, I couldn't understand my vision completely, but I knew inside me that it wanted to point me out. At the time, I was still attending a spiritual school. I didn't want to leave it. I felt I needed to belong somewhere, Although I didn't feel perfectly fitted in there, walking solo scared me, made me feel like I was losing myself, letting go of my spirituality. Since I couldn't let go of it at all, life, which is our best teacher, squeezed me outwardly a little more. I lost my job again. I hooked up with someone who only made me suffer, which was terrible. Someone that I loved so much, who showed up for 2 or 3 weeks and then disappeared for months again. And my heart was always broken. Anyway, my life couldn't have been nicer back then. Everything made me suffer, and life kept squeezing me, until one day, which I remember like it was yesterday, I sat in my room and looked at the big mirror in front of the closet, and I just cried. I cried and I asked God, what was I doing wrong? I believe I never spoke so seriously with God as I did that day. I was sad, frustrated, broken inside and out. I knew I couldn't continue in that direction anymore. In fact, there was no more road to me. All paths were closed. I begged for help that day. I said, sobbing, that I was willing to do whatever needed to be done. I would do anything to put my life in a more harmonious and perfect condition. The next day, I couldn't leave the house. Both my eyes were swollen and completely distorted. I remember very well. I looked at myself in the mirror and I had a shock. I looked completely aged, tired, worn out. Everything hurt me, including my heart. I really thought about ending my own life. I needed to be sincerely with you. That moment, I thought to put an end in my life. But I already had enough knowledge to know that it would not help me at all. It will only bring me into a new incarnation with an even greater karmic accumulation. I remember the bitterness I felt. Life was no longer fun for me. Life was no longer fun for me. And not even the idea of death was a solution to me. That still ignorant souls could have it as a relief. But for me it was no solution. I knew death didn't exist. Life is eternal. And my fear was to continue eternally in that suffering. I believe this was my own purgatory moment. That day, at night, before I went to bed, I sent one last thought to God and told Him that if I was doing something wrong, I needed to know what, because I didn't realize what was I doing wrong and in what I was wronging. In my sleep, I heard the voice, the same voice that spoke in the vision I'd had months before. It reminded me of the vision and said that it contained the answers I wanted. I woke up and right away I began to reflect on the vision again. And then suddenly everything was enlightened to me. I just needed to stop everything I was doing, because I didn't live anymore that time. I just ran away from life. I took courage, better to say, God help me with this too. I got a new job in that same week, like a miraculous event in my life, but I knew that it was God helping me that time. And on this job, I had to work on weekends. And this meant that I could no longer attend the meetings of the spiritual school I attended at that moment. So it turned me off from then. After the umbilical cord was cut, disconnecting from this school was only a consequence. It was easy then. That voice continued to guide me through the fallen nights. It told me not to read anymore. I read a lot of books at that time. The voice simply asked me to stop everything I was doing and watch life. Just watch life. This initially terrified me. It terrified me. My world was my books. How could I live without them? I asked myself. But as I had already suffered too much, and I always remembered the promise I had made to God in that day in my room, that I ought to what needed to be done to organize my life again and be happy. So the fear of suffering returning to my life was greater than the fear of putting my books aside. And so I did. I stopped reading. And the job I was in led me to another one, and the other to another. And within a few months, maybe less than 1 year, my financial life was being restored. I stopped all the alternative therapies I was doing. I was a therapist and at that time and read tarots, and I stopped all esoteric things I was doing, and I went back to acting in my profession again. I had a degree in marketing that I was not using anymore, but to that profession I returned. And some changes happened in my personal life, which I will report later on. And with them, I also changed my apartment where I live, and also from other area. I bought a new apartment really near my job, a super beautiful place. Everything was planned. I really liked the decor. The only problem that I remember was the noise at times, because I lived very close to a major highway. But at that time, it didn't bother me too much. Out today, I know it would be impossible for me to live in that noise again. But that time, it didn't bother me too much. And the voice kept coming back from time to time, and sometimes it sent me visions. In one of them, it told me it was time to go back to reading another book. It showed me a vision with the book of the changes, the I Ching. It taught me that if I study it deeply and had it as a teacher, it would help me make the right decisions to build an enlightened future. I bought the book and I studied it. Before making any decision in my life, I considered the book, and always I reflect deeply in the hexagrams I was shown. And my life began step by step to organize itself entering into perfect order. I met my husband through internet, also a long story which will stay for a next opportunity. After months we met physically, and soon after we got married. With my marriage I moved to Switzerland. I was living in São Paulo, my husband in Canada, Calgary. But at that time my husband, which is German, got a job in Switzerland, and for this reason after marriage we moved there. And Switzerland was a moment of rehabilitation for me, a place really to find myself again. I didn't have friends. I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have Facebook. I wasn't part of any social media at that time. I only lived a simple life. And I dove inside myself. But the big changes that took place in my life in 2006, marriage, the change of the country, quitting work and becoming a simple housewife, it started a lot with my emotions again, and I suffered migraines every week, and I still had great difficulty to control my emotions. That was crazy. My emotions was really uncontrolled. But from the time of my awakening, that was in 1995, to the Ascended Masters, and hearing for the first time about ascension, a great desire was born in my heart to meet one of them head on, and to achieve my ascension right here and now. This has always accompanied me and was present even in all my crises and moments of silence. I always asked for the opportunity to have a direct teacher, an ascended master who could transfer the truth to me without human interference. I was calling it internally all the time during these years. And that was what attracted in April 2008 the presence of Saint Germain to me. This was a very special moment, and how it happened, it's a very special story that I will report in the future. But for now, it was Saint Germain who brought me the knowledge of the I Am Presence. Before reading any book about it, before knowing or by having heard the name of any institution that spreads the teachings of the I Am Presence and the new discourses of the Ascended Masters. I knew at that time only the books of the theosophy and other spiritual books, but not these ones. Saint Germain brought me this knowledge of the I Am Presence personally and promised me if I made the effort to seriously practice what he was giving me, that my victory would be certain and my life would become a true paradise. Ever since Saint Germain came into my life in 2008, I have seriously followed his instructions and watched my life change little by little. I started to gain control of my emotional world and developed self-control that was always my great problem. The severe migraines disappeared too, and I saw my entire body expressing more health and vitality. Saint Germain explained to me that the I Am Presence that floated above me needed to be embodied within my heart, in my threefold flame. He told me that this presence of God here is my divine origin, and that it alone is the power that can create and sustain all that is good in our words. He directed me after several instructions to read the first 3 books of the I Am activity and to study them every day. And so I did. For about 6 years, I think these books were my holy Bible. And it was in this way that after going through several paths and yet always carrying a feeling of not being satisfied completely, that I came to know the I Am Presence and stopped looking for new paths. It made me happy. It brought me peace. It made me to feel whole, free, complete. And for this reason, to Saint Germain and the I Am Presence, I owe all my present happiness. And of course, I will talk more about my journey of knowing and understanding and realizing this I Am Presence within myself to all of you. And I know that each one has its story, each one has its challenge. This was my story, my challenge, my total surrender and rediscovery of myself as an individualized being capable of creating and aware of what I am creating. This journey, which is not yet over for sure, is the reason for every one of my breath today. This is what fills, propels, and holds my world in perfect order. This is my inner peace, my feeling of victory. This is all in all for me today. And for this reason, I wanted to tell you how I met the I Am Presence really in a very simple way, because I don't know, it might help you too. This I Am Presence, we can use it in our daily life. We don't need to go to a place to use it. We can go, we can be part of a spiritual group or not. But this knowledge, if we use it in our daily routine, it works and brings us happiness. It might be something for you or not. This is only you can see and perceive and feel in your life. So for today, it's all. If you like the video, please put your thumbs up, share it if you want, and subscribe to the channel for new videos like it. I appreciate your support, and it's important for the expansion of this channel and to bring this knowledge of the I Am Presence to others. God bless you. Have a wonderful day. Morgan Le Fay.